My name's Eric Crump. I'm with the Homewood Flossmoor Chronicle. Welcome to our Meet the Candidates video interview series. This morning we're talking with Flossmoor Mayor Michelle Nelson, who's running for re-election in the April 1st ballot. So we're going to hear from her why she's running and some of the issues that she thinks it's important for the village to address in the next 4 years. So Michelle, welcome. Thank you so much for coming this morning. We could start out with just the basic question. You've served for 4 years as mayor. You made the decision to run for your election. What were your thought processes about why you wanted to keep the job?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you doing this. My goals for the next 4 years are very similar to my goals starting out 4 years ago, which were to promote Flossmoor, grow Flossmoor, fix our infrastructure, and improve services. Those are items that you constantly need to work on to benefit the community.
Okay. The issues you mentioned, infrastructure especially, is a big one you've worked a lot on. The village has made progress. Maybe you can tell us about some of the projects that were done in the past few years, and then we could talk about what the next steps are.
Sure. So when I came into office in 2021, the Biden infrastructure bill had just been enacted. And seeing that enactment, I knew that we had to get to work right away to start securing some federal grants, which is something that we previously had not done. So we started going after federal grants and state grants for infrastructure projects, mostly flooding. That's what those type of grants fund. We've brought in over $7.4 million worth of grants since 2021 when I took office, which is a record for the village. Most of that going towards flood mitigation, other projects that support police and fire services, and then also, of course, a big $1.3 million grant for the downtown renovation that will happen this summer in 2025. The work that's happened, where a bulk of the money has gone, is the flooding on Berry Lane and the viaduct project. Berry Lane was completed a few years ago. This past summer, we completed the Heather Hill Basin, and then over the course of the next year or so, we will be doing the work from the viaduct to the basin to get everything connected and tied together. And again, bringing in more grant money to help offset residents' tax burden. And that additional grant money will then free up some other money that we have from a $10 million bond that was passed back in 2020 to go towards roads. So we're hoping to have a $1.3 million road project that we're able to complete in the summer of 2026 if everything lines up according to plan. Very exciting work.
I'm glad you mentioned property tax burden. That's been a huge issue for everyone in the south suburbs, especially since last summer when the tax bill arrived and gave people heart attacks.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
You're feeling it like everybody.
Yep.
I noticed that you had promoted a petition that is it Rich Township Assessor Sam Brown had put out there trying to rally residents to I guess, speak to their representatives at the state level and county level about what to do about that issue. You're engaged with other mayors and managers, I know, about, and that's got to be top of mind for a lot of people. Where are you at in terms of what villages can do to help mitigate that problem?
Yeah, so let me back up a little bit about the work that we do with other officials. We lobby our state representatives to let them know exactly how and where our residents are feeling the pinch. We have asked them for circuit breaker bills to help folks who are seeing huge increases, and also for folks who can't afford the increases, because it's important to keep people in their homes. So that's work that is ongoing. It's not happening fast enough, though, and I've communicated that to our Cook County assessor and our local representatives. They're aware of that. The work that we can do on a local level is to develop properties that the village currently owns, and that's been a priority of mine since 2021. Back in 2021, though, you might recall, the big push was to build warehouses everywhere. So folks wanted to build warehouses in the village of Flossmoor, and that just wasn't the right fit. It would have brought in some tax revenue to help offset our residential property taxes, but it's not the right fit. It's not what residents wanted. So we went through several iterations, for example, on Volmer Road, the vacant land on Volmer Road. And we finally now have a preliminary plan for that parcel, which we're very excited about. Other ways that we can help reduce residents' tax burden is by going after properties that are foreclosed or have unpaid taxes through Cook County's No Cash Bid program. So we recently picked up 4 additional parcels that we will be returning to public use. And we have 11 more that we're hoping to pick up within the next year, which I'm very excited about. That's also been a priority for me. Getting those parcels with unpaid taxes back on the tax roll. It's a little bit of a frustrating process because it takes years and years. For example, the 11 parcels that are in progress right now, we started back in 2023. Wow. The ones that we just picked up were started back in 2021. So it's a lengthy process. You have to have a lot of stamina to stick with it. Things are always changing at a county level, but you always have to have your eye on the prize, what you're looking for at the end of the day, which is to bring in additional revenue to help offset residents' portion of property tax expenses. So that's super important to me. We also brought in unincorporated land to the village, which adds to what we're able to put into property taxes, and built 2 additional developments that are also contributing to property taxes, commercial developments.
Okay. Can you tell us about those? I'm not familiar with the...
Sure. So the land that was brought in was Oasis, House of Refuge, palliative care. So that was an unincorporated Flossmoor. We were able to incorporate that, and now they are contributing to our tax base, which is great. And then we also have Dunkin' Donuts and Rainbow Cone, which were new properties that were built and also contribute to our tax base. That and several other new businesses, not new construction, but new businesses that also contribute to the tax base.
Speaking of businesses, I know you're working hard to get more businesses into town because it helps the local economy, it helps the tax burden for residents. I've also heard of some small businesses, especially maybe downtown, but the small businesses always have a tough go sometimes. And I know you're concerned about that too. And I was wondering if you had thoughts about any additional things that the village can do to help support small businesses and maybe help them with their longevity, help them keep going rather than, because we sort of have a lot of turnover sometimes. So.
Sure. For small businesses, back when I was elected, we created the Chamber Night, which is a partnership with Chicago South Lane Chamber of Commerce, the IPO, and actually the Chronicle was very helpful too. Thank you so much. And that has brought additional interest into our small businesses in our downtown area. Then we also partner with other groups like the Hidden Gem Half Marathon to attract interest in what we're doing downtown. We have signage that we put up. So it's a combination of events and partnerships, signage. But I think in terms of help for our small business owners, they are asked to do everything. They are the janitor, the CFO, the CEO. And so groups like the Chicago South Lane Chamber of Commerce, it's really important to stay connected and engaged with them because they offer grant funding or links to grant funding. And they also offer workshops to help these small business owners learn how to be better business owners. Because a lot of times you're creating a business from the ground up, and maybe you don't have everything worked out. You're doing this for the first time. So partnerships with other organizations are crucial to helping these small business owners. Also, Rich Township has provided some assistance in that regard too. But really keeping your nose to the ground and looking for grant and educational opportunities for our local small business owners on top of the events and the programming and the advertising that we do with them.
Well, and I've noticed you use your social media presence to promote businesses like regularly too.
Yeah.
So social media brings up the question of how to communicate, like, the messages that the villages has, some of which are promoting small business, but a lot of other issues. Village has to get information to residents and has to bring people into conversations. And I know the communication and transparency were issues that came up as part of two controversies last year. One was the village's termination of Police Chief Jarrell Jones, and the other was the detention basin at Heather Hill School. Both are very difficult situations to be in the middle of, I know, because with a termination of an employee, your advice from legal is don't say anything, and the community is saying, tell us what's going on. Mm-hmm. With the detention basin, you had people saying, we want flood relief, and other people saying, but we don't want a basin by the school. So those were really tough situations to be in, and I wonder if having gone through those and having people say we didn't feel included, have you got thoughts about like what you could do differently or other strategies you might try to employ to try to address that feeling of not being in the loop? Yeah.
Sure. So there's a difference between a difficult decision and a painful decision, mm-hmm. right? A difficult decision is something maybe like an investment, right? Mm-hmm. Which fund do I invest my money in? Where do I put my money in for growth? Something that you get over fairly quickly. But a painful decision is something like an employee termination. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't a difficult decision. It was the right thing to do, mm-hmm. but it was painful. And being in the middle of that, but knowing that you're doing the right thing to protect the interests of residents is something that's really important to me. We have improved communication throughout the village since I took office. We now publicize every meeting on social media, which wasn't something that we used to do before, along with a recap afterwards. So it's been really important for us to get the word out as to how residents can get involved and really encourage them to be a part of the process. With an employee issue, that's not something that you're going to host forums on. It's a very private, personal matter, and there are repercussions if someone was to go outside of that box. For the detention basin, though, however, there were about over 30 different ways that we tried to engage residents. Print, letters to homes, newsletters, social media, presentations at other local boards. And those are all things that we're going to continue to do to reach out. I even go to now the Heather Hill Homeowners Association. They just started up recently. They have about 30 to 40 homeowners present at every meeting. It's a fantastic way to engage the community. I also attend Flossmoor Hills Homeowners Association meetings. That's another great way to outreach. Maybe they're not going to come to a village board meeting. Maybe that doesn't work with their schedule. But for me to go out and actively look for ways to engage and pull people in where they're at, that's something that I will continue to do because I think it's really important. And again, I want to just applaud the Heather Hill Homeowners Association because it's really great to see neighbors coming together to look at how they can do better to support each other and work together for the betterment of the village. It's neat.
Yeah. And connect with the village. I know you were at their meetings before they were an organization, even.
Yeah,
right?
They were having meetings outside in the grass, and I went to them. And I wasn't necessarily invited, but I thought it was important to be where I could get feedback from more folks. Yeah. So I'm constantly always looking for that feedback loop. We might not always disagree. There are some folks that, like you said at the beginning, they want this, but they don't want that. But we do try to find ways to compromise to bring folks together, and I'll continue to try to do that.
Okay, great. I want to shift to another question that a year ago I wouldn't have imagined would have to ask. There's been, since the inauguration of Donald Trump, a certain amount of chaos and uncertainty regarding the federal institutions that we've depended on for generations. And you mentioned that the village had gotten some federal dollars to help with needed infrastructure projects here, and that helped our community, right? And a lot of those kinds of programs are now in question. They may survive, they may not. And so part of the village's ability to complete projects may be disrupted. But there's a lot of other things that residents of the village depend on, programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all sorts of things are also at risk now. And so the village will be affected maybe in a broad way by what happens in Washington. And I know there's limitations about what a village president can do, but have you thought about how to help the community weather these difficult times that we may be facing?
Yeah, I have. We've been in constant contact with our federal lobbyist out in Washington, D.C., about our infrastructure needs and those federal dollars. We don't expect those to not be fulfilled. Infrastructure is a nonpartisan issue that generally has support from both sides of the aisle, so we fully expect those funds to still be there, but we're keeping an eye on it. Medicaid, there was a memo issued that Medicaid would not be touched by the tidal wave of edicts that have been coming down. So we hope that stays the case. My biggest concern is how are our local non-for-profits doing? Yeah. Do any of them receive federal funds? And then how are we supporting these local non-for-profits in doing their good work, the work that they do for our residents? So if I could say anything, I would say if residents could please pay attention to our local non-for-profits. The Village of Flossmoor is highlighting several not-for-profits here in February. Pay attention to these folks. Engage. Go out to their events. Go out to their fundraisers. Help support them because if they receive federal funding, are more at risk than anybody else at this time.
They're probably more vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay. Well, we've only got a couple minutes left. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate you taking the time to address the issues that face the village. I wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of have the last word if you wanted. Mm-hmm. Are there things we haven't talked about that you really think people need to know before they vote April 1st?
Sure. I'm super proud of the work that we've done. We've promoted the Village of Flossmoor on an international scale by partnering with other organizations. We recently won a chamber... we were named tourism. We got a tourism award. Sorry about that. We recently got a tourism award for the event work that we do from the Visitors Bureau. Visitors Bureaus make their money off of hotel revenue. We don't have hotel revenue. So for them to come into our town and recognize our Hidden Gem Half Marathon, our fall events, our chamber night, our Juneteenth celebration and parade, it's quite an honor to have that recognition regionally. We've also been recognized for the Hidden Gem Half Marathon twice over. The Chicago Area Runners Association Race of the Year in 2022 and 2023. We're really proud of the work that residents do to support these initiatives. We couldn't do it without their volunteer spirit or attitude. So we're going to continue to promote the village as a destination. And what does that do? That helps us bring in residents to look at the village. And that's why our home values are up 14% over the regional average here in Chicagoland. Because we have this ability to bring people in and interest them in the Village of Flossmoor. It also helps with our recruitment of local businesses and national brand businesses. So we're going to continue to promote the village like crazy, which helps us grow the village. We have several areas that still need to be developed. So we'll continue to grow and bring people in to develop those village-owned properties to add to the tax roll. improving infrastructure. It will continue to be a priority. $7.4 million is a great amount to get in 4 years, but we will not rest on those laurels. We will continue to push hard for other flood mitigation projects that I know are needed throughout the village. And then improving services is something that we constantly strive to do, combining staff positions, improving communication. Those are all super important for making our village more connected and welcoming. So thank you so much for the opportunity to sit down today. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you again.